Virtual Reality Reconstructionist, the show where we explore the fascinating intersection of technology and safety and how your work is helping to save lives and prevent accidents. I'm your host, Roger Ryan Ryder, and I'm excited to be here with you today.
So now you can bring in images and photos. That was really cool. And you could start labeling it and the importing of total station data. Then it got interesting when we figured out how to tie into Google satellite images and import those geo-referenced into real world scale. Kind of a game changer. Everybody uses satellite maps to this day. Everybody. They're fantastic. They save you a ton of time. Then we got into animation and of course now simulation and prediction. And then in importing point cloud, and we learned how to handle large data sets much more efficiently. And now we're doing photogrammetry inside of the CAD program, right? So we keep doing all these things. So really, are we computer aided a design and drafting? Kind of not. We're just a workflow program for working with data, analyzing data, and delivering results.
Great point, because we're talking about public safety, and regardless of what you pick, dispatcher, officer, civilian officers now, supervisors, they all have a great set of skills, but they're tasked with so much. So what you're seeing is they know what visually it is, but how we get that. Because I remember starting out with the Matchbox cards, and how does a card do that? Trying to figure out how they would do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I got that visual. And now I can do it on a computer screen and make it understand that, or make my brain understand it. This great tool, this visual aids that y'all are providing here with FerroZone. One thing, you kind of touched on it with the different aspects, got just a ton of stuff here.
Sure.
I wanted to highlight a couple of things though. Photo point, mass zone. I think those are the two, maybe the big steps you've done with FerroZone, and kind of explain those two expert skills and why they're in FerroZone 3D now.
Well, it's important to know that Ferro Technologies is a company that makes measuring hardware, right? They have software and hardware, and we make high precision arms for measuring a ridiculously small scale. And then we have laser scanners that you just set up and scan. We have hand scanners, walk around scanners, stationary scanners, the whole work. So we do a lot with point cloud, but Ferro knows data comes from all sorts of places. And when we say data from drones, drones are just taking pictures, but they're taking them in a really elegant way, right? They're taking them from in a grid at the right angles. Photogrammetry is something that's been around for many, many years, and it will take a lot of photos and reference them together. And essentially we can create a point cloud from photos. So what we've done is we have a team at Ferro that built a tool, a system that does a really good job of taking photos and videos and making point clouds out of them. And so I'll run like a little movie here. You can take your photos, let's just go with drones, and drop them into our capture device. Oh, I think I'm showing the videogrammetry right here. This is a video from a phone. Okay, I am going to show this first, actually, because this is a video from a phone in my own house. I used my iPhone, and here's some pictures of my kitchen. And there's multiple pictures in here. It's processing it. Let's see, did it show it in there? Okay, so it's going through it. And I walked around the kitchen and processed, and it turned that into this rough point cloud here. And this is just from a phone though, right? So I'm just wanting to get first at scene, I want to get this data, right? It doesn't know what's flat. So I have a tool right here that aligns that to the ground plane. I align the floor, and I can scale this to make sure it's the right dimension and apply. See, I'm telling it that it's 2.5 feet from here to here, and it scales it to real world scale because I'm using videogrammetry, so I don't have GPS data. And I convert that to a project. And look, I have a point cloud project, and it's measurable. Okay. And then I'm going to go, and so I'm measuring like that countertop. And I'm going to go in here, and just to show even further, I'm zooming in. I added a body in here, posed him like that. There you go. So not too bad, just from a phone, right? Because you don't know, you might just need to get some information. Now, one of the guys on our team, Matt, whom I've actually worked with since I started in this business, he went out, just used the phone for the first time, took a bunch of pictures of his truck. He's had that truck, I think, longer than I've known him. And like I said, we get full on stuff from photo points. The drone stuff is fantastic. You get roadways and everything. I was just showing you the functionality of it. And then Mass Zone, Paul on our team, he's worked on this before in the past, where you can pick a car, tell it it's in the Mass Zone universe, give it a velocity, let's say 50 miles an hour, and it'll put a vector off of it saying, okay, at 1 second, I will travel that far. And then he gives it a vector on this other car. 1 second, I'll travel that far. And then you can see they're kind of going to intersect. Or you could have one of your animations created that synchronizes the point of collision and convert that to mass zone. And what is mass zone? Once there is collision, it's going to do its best to construct the damage from that speed and velocity, or from that speed and angle, and change the rotation and the travel of the vehicle. So I'll play this for you here. Oh, I hit the wrong play. So watch, it counts down, boom, right when it starts to hit. This is when it's calculating. It slows down. It'll go real-time speed once it's calculating. You see all the vectors for the crush forming and all the different vector angles. So it's going through, it's determining impulse speeds. It's showing you speeds. It'll generate a full report off of this. It's quite cool because, you just have to put in the right data for these vehicles, make sure they have the right weight and size and all that kind of stuff. And then you could set friction values on the ground. You could have ice, rain, snow. You could set your friction values and keep adjusting those things until you can create the collision exactly, or just use this as a what if scenario. So I'm going to speed that up. Even throws down the skid marks. Nice. So if you set everything right, you should be pretty much get close to what happened at the scene. And look at all the damage in here on the one car and the other. It's pretty extensive. So it does its best to predict. And then once you have it, it shows you the angles, and you can see it real time from any angle. You can even put yourself inside the vehicle. And the cool thing is you can even have rear view mirrors show up. Look at that. It's not random, but it's based on physics, right? Pretty cool though.
It is.
If you want to try to set up scenarios like you're driving, you want to preset it up, you can actually, instead of animating, you can actually set up like an Xbox steering wheel or use a 3D mouse, and you can start the mass zone while you're driving and turning and going through stuff. It'll record all that and use that when you do the mass zone stuff. So so you could get a whole bunch of cars driving really, really fast around a corner, and you can put yourself in that and look out the mirror, drive, and then try not to crash into a car and see what happens. The minute you crash, though, you lose control of the steering wheel. It will take over. The physics takes over like that. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of cool functionality. So there's and you can have fixed barrier.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You can do like a tree or a pole. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot right there. But you can see that stuff changes everything else too. So these are new things that are out there in mass zone. And I even like to go back to showing you, even though we talked about the old dog new tricks being that we had satellite images. Well, people would complain with satellite images that, there's all these cars in it. We have some ways of cleaning that out in the tool manually, but we even have an AI thing we built. We used some AI technology we worked on in-house that will go through and do its best to find all the vehicles. Takes a blending of all the pixels around it and fills it in. That's why some of these have a yellow look, because there's yellow. But there's ways to go in there and fix that as well. But that's just the down and dirty method. So when you're done, it cleans that out and you kind of get that look. So you did really pretty much get those vehicles out of there, and you could do it. Here's another one I did it on, and I can do it manually and make it a little better than that, because some of these look a little weird where you get the texture in there, but still it grabbed all those vehicles for you. But you see, I can go by hand and blend, right? And I can blend by color, solid color. I can change the colors, or I can blend it. And I'm zipping fast through this. You even have a sidewalk there that has all the shadow from the building. I'm going to put a box around that and blend it to be sidewalk. Okay. Get rid of the shadow of that tree. I can get rid of that shadow of that power pole in there. And you get it enough that things are cleaned up enough that it does a pretty good job. And then you can fix that sidewalk right there. I think, do I just do it? Yeah, it's all pixels, but it'll go in there, so if you want to clean something up, there's a lot of ways to really manage that, even shadows and stuff like that. So other than us talking about VR, I gave you a lot.
No, it's great points. All that is awesome. And some of that brings back memories, not the math zone. But I remember one time we had a hit and run. It was, I don't know, he wasn't younger. He's in his 20s, but he got hit in the street. And anyway, they left him on the sidewalk. But we were telling him, officers, to go look for, all he has a white vehicle. So it's going to be very broad. But we're able to simulate that situation where he got hit in the front and show the officers where there could be evidence on a hood or the front windshield or something from him hitting those items and rolling off, because we did find him later and we could had some assumptions of where he got hit and from behind and where he would have laid on and they were all like going, well, heck yeah, I can go do that. As opposed to looking at a whole car. They knew specifically that the hood, the front bumper, literally a couple of second video that we showed them from recreating it in FerroZone, just to give them an idea. This is what could have happened. Go out there. If you see white cars, it's what you're looking for to match it up. If you have that, let us know. We'll come out there and give it a better look. But stuff for a lot of different things.
Well, how many times have cases not had to go to court by doing a fast dynamic diagram of what happened and showing that to both sides of a case, right? Somebody that was part of a scene, right? They'll have their own testimony. They'll tell the officers, I was driving my motorcycle and this guy came out and I had to drop the bike. And then the other car said, I stopped and nobody was coming and that guy was going too fast. Well, I've had an officer pull up the Google map, show where the guy on the motorcycle said he was when he came down the road and how far he slid on that bike, and showing the car coming out. He did this all quickly in an afternoon, did some basic calculations, and he showed the motorcyclist was going way too fast. But the other guy didn't stop long enough, right? It was one of those things, but they were able to they didn't even go to court because the DA or whatever, or the attorneys, they're looking at it and going, we're just going to settle on this one, or we're not going to go any further, or, right? You know what I mean, right? You've seen that probably.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence in car crashes these days, and a lot of them get pled out quite a bit, especially after their work team, especially if somebody's dead because of it. They don't want all that evidence to go in front of a jury, especially a recreation that, reliving that, let a jury see that is detrimental to the suspect.
There's a lot, and not to make light of that, but if that is ever a point cloud created with our scanner and there are bodies in there, which obviously you don't want to necessarily show that, we can put one of those clipping boxes around it and blur it. Yeah, which is helpful. Yeah, it's a good one. So you're going to end up doing a lot of editing on this one, but I warned you when you wanted to talk to me about my baby.
Yeah, no, you're good. What we have to do here.
Do you want to talk about
get
virtual?
Me 2 episodes out of this, so
no problem.
Go. I'll pay you double for it. Okay.
Double you owe me a burger.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of bootstrapping, let's see that. Now, what you're leading, you got your shot up there. Part of this I wanted to talk about. I know y'all have done it for a few years now. People don't understand how easy it is for your 3D information to get put into VR.
Right.
The gamers are taking over this, but realistically, stuff like this can do virtual reality, and any of those 3D projects that people are creating and using this software to show visuals can use it in VR. So kind of go through that concept. I know it's your first side there's not yet, but we're preparing for it. So what are your thoughts there, and what could be down the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So we all have our opinions on things, right? And I love the idea of gamification, and I love the idea of virtual reality. I've talked to you about this before. I personally am not a super big fan of virtual reality right now, the way it's at. And that's why if the frame rates aren't high, I get sick. I get motion sick. And I'm talking about Zone, and we put a lot of work into it. Like if you can go into Zone, you can look at a point cloud and your diagram and an animation all in virtual reality. You can put your headset on, you can test that out, and you can be at the scene looking around, watching the car coming down the road from different vantage points, or walk through the scene. We can do that. We even went as far as working on a way to set it up so you could manipulate objects, collect evidence and stuff, so we could set up training scenarios. Because what a better way to set up a training than scanning an actual area instead of having to draw it and then collecting evidence or looking for evidence or sharing what was at a scene. We have that in Zone. It is possible, and it's really cool. What I would say, though, is for me personally, I'm good for 10 minutes in it and I better be out of it, right? Because that's just me. I think 50% of the world is that way. I'm not sure, but you can explore and interact. You can immerse yourself, training. You can explain. It's one more way, like you said, to help somebody understand what something could have looked like from a certain vantage point. I'm not being negative about it. I'm just saying, it's not magic. There's a lot going on with virtual reality, and it still requires hardware when it comes to stuff at our level with point clouds and stuff. It's not like you're going to put on one of those cardboard VR sets with your phone in it and start doing CAD work in it, doing 3D point clouds. Not yet. But we got a lot of cool stuff going on. But where I want to see it go is where, like, if you want to be in court with this and you want the jury to put on a headset, everybody has to have a computer. You don't have a mainframe in there hooking all this stuff up. So I know that's going to come and everything's going to happen. But what I want to see this get to, not saying it couldn't be done in some way, shape, or form at a high cost. I want it to be democratized, and I know it will be, hopefully in our lifetime, where you put on a headset and you can follow a leader. You could follow somebody through a case. You could walk me through a homicide or a collision. And then we could talk about it. We could work on it. We could look at it. Maybe we could even take measurements and do some analysis, right? Right while we're in there. I want to get to the point where not only are you sharing that with somebody, you're teaching people. Maybe you teach them how to do stuff. I know it's going to get there. I think everybody should keep their eye on it. I think if you get a chance, people should dip their toes into that pool and start playing around with it. Augmented reality. I have to wear glasses all the time now. I want to wear my glasses and start taking pictures and doing bullet trajectory analysis with them, right?
Yep.
So with that being said, I told you Matt, the guy I told you about, Matt Brown, that I've worked with for my whole career, really. He and I have worked together so long. We've come up with things like we never say no, and we never say it's impossible. But Matt likes to say, I don't say no, I negotiate. So I was thinking about that, and I know people want to do VR. And I thought, well, they can get into VR and get into hardware, but how could you sell them something that they could share easily? The only term I could come up with was effective reality, where I thought it was effective, but not virtual, but a reality. And that is, you could create an animation in our program. We have a way of doing a pano animation where it makes 360 pano images from every single point along the animation. What that means is it takes longer to create the animation because they're taking these big images, but once it's done, and it doesn't take that much longer, but once it's done, when you run the animation, you can use your mouse and look around anywhere while that animation's running. So if you position yourself as in a car driving, you could be in the car while it's in the animation, but you can look around and see if somebody coming from the left or the right. You could use that to explore the scene. You also can be a person walking through a house. I'm showing you this on my computer, and I could share this MP4 file with you, and you could do exactly what I'm doing. I just pause this animation, and I'm looking around. It's simple, right? I'm going to stop here. I'm going to look back and see, oh, yeah, that guy is shot in that window. Now I'm going to keep going. And, oh, I'm in here, but I'm going to keep turning and looking around. I'm going to move forward in that scene. I'm going to move a little further in the scene. And I'm looking at the body. I can look over here. I can look out that window. And then I set the animation to take me all the way around the table. As long as I set my path up, I can explore this animation. I could send this to anybody, and they could run it on their computer and use their mouse to do exactly what I'm doing. No hardware. And it gives you the ability to look at it. Now, what's cool about that, it gets interesting. Here's our scene. Look at this car coming down the road, right? He's going to go past me. But I'm going to pause it. I'm the witness, because the witness could say, oh, I saw him coming down the hill, right? Well, if the witness was standing over here, did he see him? How did he see him? There it is. He could have seen him maybe from there. Now look at, while it's going, I'm going to move, and I can move all the way to here and watch him stop. So that one's fun. I keep forgetting how to use a computer.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm in the car, and I'm
Okay.
going to drive through here. Watch, I'm going to just go through the car. Look at that. I'm going to drive all the way to here and just stop. These are just simple, right? Just to kind of show it off. But here, I'm going to pull it back here. I'm in the car. So I'm in the car. I can look up out at the sunroof.
Oh, wow.
I can look to the right. I can look behind me, tell the kids to shut up, yell at the kids. I was yelling at the kids. I turned around, and then the other car came down, right? So I can see while I'm, as this car is driving, anything he could have seen. He could have seen that witness
No.
right here. He could have saw the car coming from the hill, whatever. But you get my gist, right? This is not virtual reality, but it's more than just the animation.
Yeah.
You might just run this whole thing just looking behind you. You could say that the guy in the seat behind you was looking behind you. So while you're driving like that. So there you go. All the way. That's what I call effective reality. Very, very simple tool. If you have an animation and you go to your animation menu and you say, oh, I want to create an animation, you can create a video. You can create a Pano 360 video, which is that same thing. And we have preferences and mass zone video and stuff like that. So that's my spiel on that. I'm really hopeful. I think we did some really cool stuff with VR. And if somebody wanted to, if you go into Ferro Assist up here, go up into our search bar, you can open up Ferro Assist or type in VR. But if you open up Ferro Assist, which has it's our micro learning, right? It has all these movies in it and stuff. If you go down to the bottom, there is a ton on the VR in there, but it will show you what that looks like where you can pick up things and stuff.
Well, that's a great point, because I know that same concept you're using, they've already done it on a shooting incident in civil court.
Oh,
They put headsets on the jury and they were able to pick which position they wanted to view the incident from, and then look around and see. The whole idea was see what the officer could see when they made that decision to protect themselves and shoot. That was their focus, right? So they did that same, just made it an app, which means you can do it on most any virtual headset with some lap memory. So we're kind of there, but you're got some great points.
Well,
that's really immersive.
And my point being, and you're right, I should have clarified that. I'm talking about taking all that data real time and being in it virtually, and being in the model, being in the point cloud diagram. Now and using point clouds. Now it's a different scenario if there's virtual reality where you do training, where you have rooms set up with objects that are mapped out, and that entire scenario is built around that, or somebody geometrically builds a scenario and puts you in it. That's a different scenario. You're pre-building virtual reality things and then moving through them, where we're doing ours with live data and editable data. So yeah, there is a difference, right? So it's there, but the way I guess the way I was hoping to see it is you could go out with a scanner or not, or just draw on top of a Google map or something and create a scenario and then be in virtual reality in it, which you can do, and then set up trainings of real places. Like, let's say you had a homicide took place in New York. And what if you had a specialist in Seattle, Washington? What if they could create the scene in VR with a scanner and have all the evidence there, and then share that like live with the guy in Seattle? He walks through it with the other guy in New York. And the guy said, did you look here? Did you look under there? I mean, and then once you've done that and you have all that data, what if you use it as a teaching tool later? Because the FBI, I've been in a training with the FBI many years ago where they took copious amounts of photos and led you through photo by photo of a scene, and you were trying to recognize what was in the scene. And it was real homicide. And I got to tell you, I've seen some gruesome things. There's some stuff that I was like, and it shocked me how long it took my brain to recognize it. But it's a teaching moment, right?
Yeah.
So
you got a great point. It's and like we're talking earlier about the shooting incident that the agency called me on. They were not looking at this as an oh crap moment. Their idea was, how can we make sure everybody understands how well this was taken care of, and how the de-escalation skills, how they took cover, how they interacted with them, and when push come to shove, why they make that decision. But they wanted the visuals to show somebody. So they had they positive, but you're not learning anything like they're talking about. Take a real incident that happened. We know all the elements, right? Because we went there and looked at it. We don't have to get any privacy info. We can recreate that or use that data and work people through it.
Stay tuned for part 3, where Derik and Ryan discuss customer feedback and its impact to FerroZone, as well as the struggles to create a digital CAD product the current and next generation will be inspired to utilize.